It's going to be super exciting. So, so without any more delay, let me introduce the next presenter. Ladies and gentlemen, get ready for an enlightening session on pipeline on Kubernetes with our speaker Sudhish Nair. He's a senior software maintenance engineer at Red Hat. Sudhish will be unveiling the power of Tekton, a Kubernetes-native open source framework revolutionizing continuous integration and delivery systems. So I'm handing over the mic to Sudhish. What do you say?
Thank you, John. Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Sudhish, and I work as Senior Software Maintenance Engineer at Red Hat. So today's session, So today's session, we would be covering pipelines for Kubernetes. So the Tekton project, which is developed as cloud-native CI/CD solution. So when we talk about cloud-native, today we are at a cloud-native conference for Kubernetes. What exactly is cloud-native? So I think everyone here would be aware of what exactly is cloud-native. Anyone here can give an example or anything in shortest possible terms? What exactly is cloud-native? Can shout louder. Yeah, in basic layman's term, what we call as cloud-native app or solution is something which is ready and built to be deployed and running in a cloud environment. And it is synonymous to what we call as K-native, Kubernetes-native environment. And what's the CI/CD solution? Continuous integration and continuous deployment is since this is a DevOps tracks, and DevOps, the main pillar and foundation of DevOps is CI/CD deployment, where we have to continuously integrate our source code with our what we call master main branch, and keep it as a single source of truth. And the second step would be to continuous deployment. In a fast-paced development world, where the apps keeps on developing, the technology keeps on changing so fast, you need a technology which enables you to continuously provide continuous deployment. So Tekton is a technology which is developed basically to serve these two purposes. It is completely cloud native, and it's a solution which provides you building CI/CD pipelines. What's a pipeline? In most basic term, a pipeline is a workflow which enables you to schedule a job or work as a series of tasks, one after another. And Tekton is built as an extension to the Kubernetes cluster. So it can be used as a custom resource on Kubernetes itself. You don't have to have anything separate or a different to manage Tekton. Once it's deployed on your Kubernetes system, you can manage it as you manage your pod or any resource which is available on the Kubernetes. And what are the benefits that's available when you are using Tektons? And so here, all of you here, any of you used Tekton before? Okay, any CI/CD solutions? Jenkins, maybe most of you are Jenkins. Any other names? Okay. And what's the major difference between, do you know how means, for example, in Jenkins, if you want to enable it as a cloud native, how can you integrate with it? So in basic terms, Jenkins has a Jenkins servers, which is a controller, and there would be many agents, which is like nodes which would be executing the actual Jenkins task, right? And when you look at Kubernetes also is something similar only. Kubernetes has a controller cluster, and you can spin up as much nodes, as much pods as you want, which is controlled by the Kubernetes controller. So when you have a system already in place in Kubernetes, so instead of creating a new server agent model, Tekton leverages the existing model which is available in the Kubernetes. So you don't need to have an Tekton controller and a Tekton agent separately. and it's completely leverages the Kubernetes capabilities of its controller and server system. That's why it can be customized as you wish, because everything in Kubernetes is defined as a YAML or JSON file, which can be, you can just do kubectl apply to enable it. And second most advantage of Tekton is that it's reusable. Most of the components used in Tekton, especially the basic building blocks, which is used to execute the tasks and reusing functionaries, it's basically available as a simple YAML template. So anyone who has a basic knowledge to edit YAML can easily modify that file and reuse it as per their use. And other most important benefit would be ever increasing community of Tekton Hub. So those who have been using something like Jenkins, you know there are lots of plugins available in Jenkins, which is basically the heart of any CI/CD development. If you have to develop a workflow and you have to write everything from the scratch, then every time it would take lots of time. And most of the tasks, simple from building, packaging, testing, are most common features which is available and can be reused more and anywhere. You just have to pick that plugin and deploy it. And with Tekton community, the catalog which is available in the Tekton, there are hundreds of reusable components which can be directly plugged into the Tekton implementation. And it is ever expanding. So one greatest advantage of Tekton being in an open source community is that any one of you don't need to be part of any company, any industry or any system to be add or contribute to the Tekton source code. So if you have a good component which you like to develop and you think that other people can use it and benefit from it, you can also contribute towards it. So it's very fast, expandable, and it's expanding at a pretty fast rate. And since it is built on top of Kubernetes, the last 2 points, you don't have, it's self-explanatory. It's built to the Kubernetes standard, and scalability is not an issue. You can always have multiple nodes in the cluster, and you don't have to do anything separate to scale the Tekton, because it's just a custom resource on Kubernetes platform. So what exactly is a workflow in a Tekton CI/CD? Basically, it's built about 3 building blocks. When I will start from bottom, pipeline is something you have heard many times if you are in DevOps. Anyone working with DevOps or operations or developer, whatever, they have heard about pipeline, because almost all the industries today uses CI/CD pipeline to develop their apps or solutions. And in basic term, pipeline is a workflow which can be executed or scheduled to be executed at any specific time, and it follows a defined set of flow. And in Tekton, what it's been internally, the working is, it groups all the tasks as a graph, and the graph is being executed in that order itself. And the basic component of a pipeline would be a task. So pipeline made up of multiple tasks. So in Tekton, the task is basically a Kubernetes pod. At the end, for each task, there would be a pod which is spun up, and that pod would execute what is configured to do with the startup binary which is being configured, and it will do its job. Once it's successfully jobbed, it goes to the next pod, and it will spin up the next pod to do a next task. That's how the workflow works. And what are tasks? The most basic component would be the task consists of multiple steps. You can have if you are building a pipeline, so fetching the code from the Git source repo, that is a step. Then building it, that would be a step. If you have any integration test to run, that would be a step. You can categorize it as a single step, or you can also categorize it as multiple tasks. And when we call in a single pod, every step would be having any specific binary which needs to be executed. So that's the most basic component. A step can have more than one binary to be executed, or it can have at least single binary. So whenever a step is executed, it creates a Kubernetes container, and whichever the binary is being configured, it injects it as a startup script to that container. So it begins to start from there. So multiple steps makes a task, multiple tasks makes a pipeline. An entire pipeline would be used as a CI/CD workflow integration model. So this is how a task YAML would look like. It's pretty simple. Anyone who has been using Kubernetes can create a YAML file. It's of kind task, name can be anything, and it consists of multiple steps. Out of these steps, the most important part would be the image and the script used. So image, any step which needs to be executed needs to have an image reference on the basis of which that script binary can be executed. So if I am executing an sh script, shell script, I need to have a image binary, image reference which should be having the shell script capability. So if I have to do a Maven build, I need to have a image which is capable of doing Maven build. Sorry. And what is task run? So task is the template which you use to create the component. Task run is the execution. So in general terms, image is the template that we use. The container is the running instance of that particular image. Similarly, task run is the running instance of task. And it just consists of the reference to the task which we have created. And the next would be pipeline. So similar to task and task run, we have a pipeline and pipeline run. So pipeline would consist of multiple tasks. And if you can either directly embed the task content to the pipeline YAML itself, or define task as a separate entity itself, and then just refer that here. So advantage of defining task as a separate entity is you have the advantage in Tekton that you can run the task as a separate unit. You don't have to create a pipeline every time in order to execute the workflow. So you have a task and you just to test whether my build is working or not. That's a task. You don't have to run the entire pipeline for that. That task can be executed as a standalone unit. And in pipeline, you can re-execute a failed task, etc. So pipeline run would be a running instance of that particular pipeline. So when you have a pipeline, you mentioned what all params it's expecting. So pipeline run is expected to provide those params. So these are the basic modules which is supported by the Tektons as of now. So Tekton pipelines is the basic foundation which is used to develop that steps, task, pipeline, the entire CI/CD, custom resources. So that would be the base model here. Then in order to support pipelines, we have multiple modules available. So triggers is one of the most important component. Nowadays, most of the pipeline runs are automated, and it is automated based on event-based automations. So there would be event listeners available which would be listening to different kinds of events, and whenever a particular specific event happens, it gets executed. So triggers used for event-based execution. CLI is a command line interface which is built on top of Kubernetes. So you can use everything which Kubernetes CLI provide. On top of that, we have a TKN interface which can be used to execute TKN. Dashboard is the UI and UX interface which is used to build the pipeline and to show the display. So if you are not a command line expert, you need to do it from UI. The dashboard is the part. Catalog is the repository where we have a huge repository of reusable tasks and pipelines. Hub is the web interface from where you can download and install this repository. Operator is a pattern which is available to install Tekton. So if you want to manage it as an operator, then also you can do it in Kubernetes with Tekton operator. And the last one is chains. Chains is basically a system to provide security for all the artifacts and images which is built or deployed using Tekton pipeline, so that these artifacts are signed and marked, so that in further during the CI/CD flow, it is not tampered with. So this is a small demo. So as I told, installing a Tekton is as simple as kubectl apply -f. You just have to pass the release YAML. There is nothing else needed. Once the Tekton is installed, you have the Tekton pods up and running. The controller pod is the one which is responsible for everything the Tekton does. And in order to install any other components, you just have to follow kubectl apply. So if you have to install a task, you just have to pass the task YAML file. So this is the sample task YAML file, which just prints a hello world on the screen. Similarly, you can install pipelines as well. So these are the two task YAMLs which is available. I installed by simply applying kubectl apply -f. And the next, similarly, you can do pipeline YAML. Okay. Yeah, so this is the pipeline YAML which needs to be executed. And once this is done, you just have to run the pipeline run in order to instantiate a container run. That's it. Then you can use Tekton CLI to check the logs, basically. So this is the most simple steps to run a CI/CD pipeline. So once the pipeline run is executed, it will do the task which is being configured here. That's it. Thank you.